One country, many cultures, the melting pot versus the mosaic. When we talk about immigration, culture, and identity, two countries often appear in the discussion, the United States and Canada. Both nations were built by people who came from different parts of the world, bringing their languages, traditions, and beliefs. However, the way these two countries imagine cultural diversity is very different. The United States is famous for the idea of the melting pot, while Canada promotes the image of a multicultural mosaic. These metaphors sound simple, but they show two very different ways of thinking about society. Let's start with the American melting pot. Imagine a big pot on the stove, full of ingredients like vegetables, meat, and spices. When you cook them together, they mix and create something new, a soup with a unique flavor. This is how the United States often describes itself. In the melting pot, immigrants are expected to leave behind many parts of their original identity in order to become American. Of course, they can keep some traditions at home, but in public life, people are encouraged to share a common culture, speak English, and adopt American values. This idea helped the U.S. create a strong national identity, especially during the 19th and 20th centuries, when millions of immigrants arrived from Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Many people felt proud to say they were part of the American dream. However, the melting pot has also been criticized. Some argue that it pressures minorities to hide or abandon their cultural differences. For example, in schools or workplaces, people sometimes feel they must change their names, accents, or customs to fit in. In this way, the melting pot can lead to assimilation, where smaller cultures disappear into the dominant one. Now let's look at Canada. In contrast to the US, Canada prefers the metaphor of the multicultural mosaic. A mosaic is a piece of art made from many small, colorful tiles. Each tile keeps its own shape and color, but together they form a bigger, beautiful picture. Canada uses this image to describe how different cultures live side by side while keeping their unique traditions. The Canadian government has even made multiculturalism part of its national policy. Since the 1970s, Canada has promoted respect for cultural diversity, encouraging communities to keep their languages, foods, festivals, and beliefs. For example, in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, you can walk through neighborhoods where you see signs in Chinese, Italian, or Arabic. Instead of hiding cultural identity, people are invited to celebrate it. This approach creates a society where identity is more flexible. Someone can say, I am Canadian, but I am also Indian, or I am Canadian, but I am also Colombian. The mosaic values differences as a strength rather than a problem. Of course, Canada is not perfect. Some critics say that multiculturalism can create cultural ghettos, where communities live parallel lives without truly mixing. Others argue that racism and inequality still exist. But the official message is clear: diversity is something to protect, not erase. When we compare the melting pot and the mosaic, we can see two different philosophies. The melting pot emphasizes unity by creating a single shared culture, but sometimes at the cost of diversity. The mosaic emphasizes diversity by protecting differences, but sometimes at the cost of unity. Both approaches have successes and challenges. These metaphors invite important questions. How should societies treat cultural differences? Should immigrants fully adapt to the dominant culture, or should societies change to include many ways of living? There is no simple answer, but the conversation continues.